When Blake 7 ended on the 21st of December 1981, few could have imagined that its most enduring legacy would ultimately be heard rather than seen. Terry Nation's bleak, politically charged science fiction series concluded with one of the most audacious endings in British television history, leaving the fate of Avon deliberately unresolved. While the television series would never return, the world of Blake 7 gradually found a second life through audio drama, a medium that proved ideally suited to its expansive imagination and morally complex storytelling. Over the following 4 decades, Blake 7 developed one of the richest audio histories of any British television series, not including Doctor Who. Beginning with BBC radio dramas in the late 1990s, continuing through ambitious fan productions, a professionally produced reboot, and culminating in Big Finish's acclaimed continuation of the original series. These productions have not only preserved Terry Nation's creation, but expanded it in ways television has rarely been able to achieve. The first significant revival of Blake 7 came from BBC Radio 4, 17 years after the series had disappeared from BBC One. On the 17th of January 1998, The Sevenfold Crown was broadcast as part of Radio 4's Playhouse strand. Written by former Doctor Who producer Barry Letts and produced by Brian Lighthill at BBC Pebble Mill in Birmingham. It represented the first brand new official Blake 7 drama since 1981. Rather than attempting to continue beyond the controversial ending of Blake, Letts set the story between the 4th season television episodes Star Drive and Animals. This allowed the surviving members of Scorpio's crew to reunite without disturbing established continuity. Paul Darrow returned as Avon, Michael Keating as Villa, Stephen Pacey as Tarrant, Jacqueline Pearce as Servalan, and Peter Tubman once again voiced both Aurak and Slave. With Josette Simon and Glynis Barber unavailable, Angela Bruce assumed the role of Dana White, while Paula Wilcox took over as Sulin. The Sevenfold Crown demonstrates both the strengths and limitations of reviving a visually ambitious series for radio. Letts embraced audio's freedom by constructing a story around an ancient artifact capable of amplifying psychic powers, allowing the production to explore concepts that would have been prohibitively expensive on television. While fans loved hearing the original cast, particularly Paul Darrow, whose sardonic performance as Avon has lost none of its precision, opinion on the script itself was divided. Some admired its sense of adventure and willingness to embrace mythic science fiction, while others felt it lacked the political cynicism that characterised Terry Nation's original series. A second play, The Cinderton Experiment, followed on the 10th of April 1999. Again written by Letts and produced by Lighthill, set immediately after The Sevenfold Crown, it centred on Federation attempts to exploit a substance capable of controlling minds through nanochip technology, bringing Servalan into conflict once more with the Scorpio crew. While generally regarded as a stronger script than its predecessor, it again showcased the chemistry between Darrow, Pearce and Keating, reminding audiences just how distinctive these performances remained nearly 20 years after the television series ended. The two plays ultimately aren't much cop, but their historical importance is difficult to overstate. They demonstrate that Blake 7 retained a loyal audience, reunited much of the original cast for the first time since 1981, and proved the series could thrive as an audio drama. In some respects, every subsequent audio production owes something to these broadcasts, even if it's just a pointer on how not to do things. Predating the BBC productions, a group of fan audio producers gave the BBC a run for their money with their own take on the Blake 7 universe. A company by the name of Magic Bullet Productions established itself as one of the most ambitious independent audio companies in science fiction fan circles. Although officially unable to use Blake 7 because of copyright restrictions, the company produced sophisticated dramas using the same creative traditions, actors, writers, and ultimately characters from both Doctor Who and Blake 7, which is why despite their consistently high quality, they are still labelled as unofficial and ultimately fan productions. The driving force behind Magic Bullet was Alan Stevens, who wrote and directed many of the plays, along with Alistair Locke, who worked as composer, sound designer and co-director. Their work rapidly earned an exceptional reputation within fan circles. At a time when most amateur audio drama relied upon minimal sound effects and home recording equipment, Locke created richly layered soundscapes, original orchestral scores and cinematic productions that rivaled professional releases, and ultimately sounded better than the BBC radio productions, with the scripts too being of a higher quality. Magic Bullet developed an impressive catalogue of original and unofficial Blake 7 dramas that explore characters and events beyond the TV series, beginning with The Mark of Cain in 1996. The company produced a succession of increasingly ambitious stories. They followed up The Mark of Cain with The Logic of Empire, which you can hear discussed on the latest episode of Too Hot for TV, and the more recent productions I, Travis, Travis the Final Line, The Next Life, and Prodigal Son. These productions expanded the mythology of the Federation, examined the motivations of major characters, and explored the darker political and psychological themes that had always distinguished Terry Nation's creation. Magic Bullet's finest achievement was undoubtedly Kaldor City, a noir-inspired science fiction series that expanded the universe introduced by Chris Boucher in both his Doctor Who story The Robots of Death and in Blake 7. Although technically separate from Blake 7, the series shared both characters and settings from both his Who work and Boucher's Blake 7, including psychostrategist Carnell from the episode Weapon. It also shared many of its political concerns: corrupt governments, powerful corporations, moral ambiguity, and the uneasy relationship between authority and individual freedom. It attracted an impressive cast, including Russell Hunter, Scott Fredericks, Peter Miles, Trevor Cooper, Brian Croucher, Peter Tudman, Nicholas Courtney, David Collins, Peter Halliday, John Leeson, Philip Maddock, and Paul Darrow as the series lead Castan Iago, who may or may not be a post-Gouda Prime Avon. The series is rich with mythos and action, and is full of jaw-dropping twists and turns. It quickly gained a reputation of one of the finest independent sci-fi audio series of the era, and is still widely available today and well worth picking up. And if you want to read more about the full making of the series, why not pick up my book, Downtime: The Lost Years of Doctor Who, which details the making of many Doctor Who spin-offs of the 90s and noughties, including Kaldor City. The next major milestone arrived on the 11th of December 2006, when B7 Productions, later B7 Media, announced that it had secured the license to produce new Blake 7 audio adventures. Rather than continuing the television storyline, producer Andrew Mark Sewell opted for a complete reimagining of Terry Nation's original concept. Broadcast on BBC Radio 7 over Christmas 2007, the new productions featured an entirely recast ensemble. Derek Riddell became Blake, Colin Salmon assumed the role of Avon, and Daniela Nardini portrayed Servalan, supported by actors including Craig Kelly and Carrie Debrow. The scripts came from an impressive stable of science fiction writers, including Ben Aronovich, Mark Platt, and James Swallow. The decision to reboot rather than continue the original continuity divided opinion almost immediately. Long-term fans struggled to accept the new interpretation, particularly Colin Salmon's restrained Avon in place of Darrow's flamboyant original. Others welcomed the willingness to avoid nostalgia and admired the production's cinematic scale. With hindsight, critical opinion has become more generous. The opening story Rebel, written by Ben Aronovich, remains widely regarded as the strongest of the trilogy, successfully balancing political intrigue with large-scale action. Liberator impressed many listeners through its ambitious sound design and imaginative reinterpretation of Terry Nation's universe. More importantly, the production demonstrated that Blake 7 could be adapted for the 21st century. B7 Media subsequently expanded the range with its early years series, exploring the formative lives of Avon, Jenna, Travis, Villa, and other principal characters, before the events of the main series. These productions received a warmer reception than the reboot itself, largely because they concentrated upon character development rather than retelling the beginning of the classic TV series in a new format. Alongside these developments, BBC Audiobooks released readings of Trevor Hoyle's original television novelisations. Beginning in 2009 with The Way Back, narrated by Gareth Thomas, and Cygnus Alpha, read by Paul Darrow, before later adding Project Avalon, these productions offered something rather different from the full-cast dramas. Although essentially narrated audiobooks, they possess considerable historical value by allowing original cast members to revisit their defining roles decades after first performing them. For many listeners, hearing Gareth Thomas and Paul Darrow narrate Blake and Avon once again proved as rewarding as any new drama. The decisive turning point for Blake 7 audio plays was when Big Finish Productions, best known for their expansive Doctor Who output, acquired the license and returned Blake 7 to its original television continuity, rather than continue B7 Media's reboot. Producers Jason Haig-Ellery and John Ainsworth reunited surviving members of the original cast and developed stories that slotted naturally into the gaps within the television narrative. The first range, The Liberator Chronicles, launched in 2012, using a hybrid format combining narration with dramatic performance. Original cast members including Gareth Thomas, Paul Darrow, Michael Keating, Sally Knyvette, Jan Chappell and Jacqueline Pearce narrated these stories while reprising their own characters. Initially adopted for practical reasons, the format quickly proved one of the range's greatest strengths. Rather than disguising the actors' advancing years, it showcased their considerable storytelling abilities. Paul Darrow once again emerged as an outstanding narrator, bringing Avon's dry wit and intellectual arrogance vividly back to life. Stories such as The Turing Test and The Armageddon Storm received widespread praise and are frequently cited amongst the finest Blake Seven stories produced in any medium. Big Finish's greatest Blake Seven achievement followed in 2013, when it reunited almost the entire surviving television cast for fully dramatised adventures. For the first time since 1981, Gareth Thomas, Paul Darrow, Michael Keating, Sally Knyvette, Jan Chappell, Brian Croucher and Jacqueline Pearce once again performed together in newly written episodes. Producer John Ainsworth wisely resisted any temptation to rewrite television history. Instead, the stories were once again carefully inserted into previously unseen gaps between televised episodes. Fractures successfully captured the volatile relationship with the Liberator crew, while Caged and Fortuitous explored the political and ideological themes that had always distinguished Blake Seven from more optimistic science fiction series. Warship, positioned between Star One and Aftermath, elegantly bridged the television series' most intriguing narrative gaps. And if you want to know what I thought of Warship, check out the latest episode of Too Hot for TV. Fans consistently praise the authenticity of the performances and the remarkable quality of Alistair Locke's sound design. Having begun his career in fan productions with Magic Bullet, Locke now found himself responsible for creating the definitive sonic identity of official Blake Seven. Following the deaths of Gareth Thomas in 2016, Jacqueline Pearce in 2018 and Paul Darrow in 2019, Big Finish gradually shifted its emphasis towards spin-offs, featuring characters such as Avalon, Del Grant, and Baban the Butcher. Although inevitably different in tone, these productions have continued to explore the wider political landscape of Terry Nation's universe, while respecting the continuity established by both television and earlier audio adventures. Looking back over the last few decades, the audio history of Blake Seven reveals an unusually close relationship between fans and professionals. The BBC radio plays proved that the series still possessed dramatic life, even if the results were not to everyone's taste. Magic Bullet demonstrated the extraordinary standards that fan productions could achieve. B7 Media showed that Terry Nation's original concept could be successfully reimagined for a new generation, while Big Finish ultimately reunited the original cast and produced what many fans regard as the definitive continuation of the television series. What are your favourite Blake Seven audio dramas? Let us know in the comments below. Too Hot for TV is a fortnightly podcast that looks at the expanded media of your favourite franchises. Look for Too Hot for TV in your regular podcatcher or on the YouTube channel, and be sure to subscribe. Each week, I'm joined by a different guest to look at the expanded universe of a different franchise. And follow Too Hot, the number 4 TV pod on Instagram, TikTok or YouTube.